Welcome everyone to our Jupiter and Aquarius part 2, where we're going to look at the transit of Jupiter through all 12 houses. You can see, okay, Meaty Monkey, Laura, you're starting out noisy. As you can see on your screen, Jupiter went into Aquarius December 19th. I'll show you in a minute here where it dips into Pisces retrogrades and then it finishes up in Aquarius December 29th of next year. Okay, hold on. I gotta get my little thing going. There we go. Here's the first of 2 housekeeping slides with all the links to the various ways that you can study evolutionary astrology with us at EAN. I continue to be a little surprised once in a while at people who find me and have no idea we do a new and full moon audio podcast, one each month or twice a month, and we've got one coming up here in just the next day or so. Before that, however, we have been running an end of the year special on all our evolutionary astrology course materials, and we have combined the segment 3, health and wellness, into segment 2. So as you can see, looking at the little blue quotes on your screen, we have segment 1, which is learning all the basics of how to interpret a chart. Segment 2 is kind of everything else, and we've now combined them. And whether you want the materials themselves with DVDs and handouts, or you want it digitally, or both, all of the above are now on sale, 20% off through January 3rd of 21. So here are the dates for you that you can use as reference if you want to go back to previous Jupiter and Aquarius cycles and look at what was going on in your world and your charts, if you care to. Oh, and there's those 2 months that Jupiter rushes into Pisces and then goes back retrograding into Aquarius. Then I thought I said this in the first part, if you didn't catch this, in 5 months, Jupiter is going to race through the archetype of Aquarius. And so these first 5 months of next year can feel like things are speeding up and going way too fast for us before it retrogrades and then finishes up another 5 months after its retrograde cycle. Jupiter's retrograde here, next screen. Jupiter's retrograde from 2 degrees Pisces to 22 degrees Aquarius. So while it'll take those first 5 months here to race through 30 degrees of Aquarius, it will then, when it goes back into Aquarius, spend 5 more months going through the last 8 degrees of Aquarius. So 5 months, it races through the entire 30 degrees of Aquarius. And then after it's, or in the midst of its retrograde cycle, it then spends another 5 months in the last 8 degrees. So it's those last 8 degrees of Aquarius where Jupiter will end up making those 3 passages with the retrograde cycle. And if you have planets between 22 and 30 degrees of a sign, they're going to be more impacted by this Jupiter and Aquarius transit, be it the conjunction opposition squares of the fixed signs or the trines of the air signs or other aspects therein. If you want to be looking at it at your own chart, you might want to, again, pay attention to those last 8 degrees of Aquarius that Jupiter is going to pass over 3 times. So I included this slide again. I put it in every Jupiter sign transit because Jupiter expands anything and everything it touches. If you by any chance have a natal Jupiter aspect to another planet, all you have to do is ponder the archetype of that planet and how Jupiter magnifies it. And the details of the magnification are going to be the specific phase or aspect that the two planets are, or that the planet and Jupiter are having together. So Jupiter expanding everything. It will take anything and everything to excess and extreme, both positive and negative. And we'll look at a bit of those as we jump right in through the 12 houses. However, remember that as Jupiter in Aquarius is transiting through 1, 2, maybe 3 houses in your chart, all of the key concepts and lessons that you were going through with this Jupiter transit through Aquarius will always relate back to your natal Jupiter by sign house aspects and your lifetime work with the archetype of Jupiter. In other words, a forecasting planet does not operate in isolation. That forecasting planet, whether it's transits, progressions, or solar arcs, is always going to be having an evolutionary impact on that natal archetype. So keep this in mind. Where is your natal Jupiter? By sign, by house, and by aspects, because that's going to be evolving as well. So here we are jumping right into the houses. And in evolutionary astrology, we look at a sign, a house, and its planetary ruler as one archetype. Example that we can give is Mars rules Aries and Mars rules the first house. So Mars, Aries, and the first house is one archetype. And so what I did here on our screens is I went and took Aquarius back to its planet, and I took the first house back to its ruling planet. So as you look at where you have this transit in your houses, we're combining 3 archetypes together when we look at this. And I could have done it with the signs, and I probably could do it with the houses. I just think that the planets are a little more observable and dynamic for us as we're looking at blending them. So when we have Jupiter in Aquarius transiting the first house, it is about evolving our ability to be objective with ourselves and detaching from the immediacy of our environment. First house, me, myself, and I. It's always in the action of the moment. And yet Jupiter in Aquarius says step back and be able to look at yourself from a broader perspective. It also asks us to come through and initiate new actions, first house, new behavioral patterns, especially as we understand the effects of trauma from our past. In each of these 12 house transits, we're going to be dealing with the archetype of trauma. In the first house, we're dealing with trauma to the body. We can be dealing with past life trauma of dying young. We can be dealing with the trauma of our own sense of self and that desire nature and how we just want to instinctively become. Well, if we have Aquarius there on that first house, sometimes we can get trapped. Aquarius is fixed air, fixed mentality. We can get trapped in repeating how we instinctively want to act in various situations. And Jupiter offers us a broader understanding in which we can look at, well, why do I always react this way? And how can I step back and understand it and then consciously choose to act in a new way? So there'll be these new beginnings of the first house, and we want to make them consciously understood and acted upon new beginnings. In other words, what degree can we lessen just instinctively reacting and consciously choosing to act or respond? Because of the polarity to the seventh house, this is going to involve listening, because the first house is always getting feedback from others. Seventh house polarity. So with Jupiter, how well can we listen to what others are saying and really understand things from that broader Aquarian perspective, from that more objective perspective? And so as we get all that information and feedback and relationships, Jupiter wants to help us integrate that knowledge in new ways so that we can initiate new patterns of how to be in relationship with others, and especially new patterns that have a greater giving and receiving equality. In other words, we're not running the show all the time, and we're not allowing others to step over us all the time. How do we balance that giving and receiving with greater understanding and objectivity? We're also instinctively learning to honor our own evolving beliefs. Jupiter in the first, what do I believe? And there can be the pull from that seventh house polarity of conforming to what our friends or our partner or whoever we're interacting with believes. And this is going to be about objectifying our beliefs, Aquarius, and then understanding things from a broader perspective and literally evolving what we believe and know about ourselves, which is going to have a strong effect on that instinctive desire nature that is always coming out of the first house. It can also be areas of freedom that might come along. In Aquarius fixed air, there can be some pressure buildups and perhaps the need to ask for freedom in some way. Or perhaps it just might be freedoms coming from life itself. I have the first 29 degrees of Jupiter, or the first 29 degrees of Aquarius in my first house. I'm a later Capricorn rising, but again, 29 degrees Aquarius in my first, that's a strong archetype in my first house. One of my freedoms is the transitioning of my father from a body back to spirit world. And I had been taking on a caretaker role with him and my mother over the last year and a half. And so I have unsubscribed to the VA emails because I'm not going to go to the VA with my dad on a doctor's visit anymore. So sometimes they're freedoms we initiate, and sometimes they're freedoms that just come upon us. And if it might be something that is perhaps not the freedom we wanted, seventh house polarity, a spouse that could pass or divorce. We have to be careful here to really make an effort with Jupiter to not re-traumatize ourselves into a sense of loneliness from a new freedom that perhaps shows up in our world. And one of the ways in which we do this, we hear this a lot with the archetype of Uranus, Aquarius in the 11th house. Until we learn how to be a group of one, be comfortable with ourselves, and in Jupiter's case, understand our own beliefs that create what we value, we're not going to know what Aquarian groups we want to connect to. We've got to honor our own group of self, that group of one as we call it. So then we understand ourselves better, and then we move in directions of others who are like-minded with how we are evolving into our new self. So there can be a lot of new beginnings with Jupiter Aquarius transit in the first house, some that we choose and some that come upon us. And it is important whenever necessary to step back and do that deep Jupiter intuitive pondering versus getting caught up into old repeating traumatic patterns. What is the new me coming through? And how does the new me want to act based upon the evolution of my beliefs with Jupiter in the first house? I have to kind of limit my time with each of these, so I'm hoping what I'm doing here, what my intent has been, is to give you a slide that would just list some key concepts here that can help you spark your own intuitive understandings in deeper, broader, more objective ways, Aquarius, that you can feed your own information with yourself in whatever transit we are looking at. Now, a couple of years ago, when Jupiter was in Sagittarius, I did the transit of Jupiter and Sag through the 12 houses, and I, had the same archetype, Jupiter in its own sign, initiating that new 12-year cycle around the zodiac on a solar level. So I put these slides in because it's just Jupiter generically in this house. And so I'm not going to take the time to read through these, but you're going to have them in your PowerPoint handout so that you can access these for yourself. And again, look at how Jupiter in certain houses, either natally and or by transit, can be distorted. And then also how it can naturally express itself. And it's my intent, again, that these slides of just Jupiter generically in each of the 12 houses will help your Aquarian sparks of greater information, of objectivity, of being able to get outside yourself and look at things from broader perspective, and how you want to make that Jupiterian effort to evolve and integrate into more than you were yesterday. So, moving on then, time-wise, when Jupiter in Aquarius transits the second house, this is where we want to allow any traumas around survival issues, around sexuality issues, around resource issues. We want these traumas to surface again. Wherever Jupiter in Aquarius is by a house, trauma is going to resurface. The awareness of it will come through. Sometimes it will be by re-imprinting the trauma. And if it happens again, we definitely want to step back and go, wait a minute, why am I repeating this? What is there for me to learn here? So second house, traumas are going to resurface around these issues so that we can understand what it means to survive here on planet Earth, what it means to flourish beyond survival. How does our sexuality want to evolve here with this transit? Then how is our relationship to resources evolving? So we've got to take a deeper, broader look at all of this in order to understand it better, to then make any changes we want to make. And I will point out that because the second house is fixed Earth, we can get really stuck in our patterning here. And we can know what changes we need to make. But that fixed modality, do we make that effort? We want to with this knowledge of this transit, initiate efforts to change when it's any of the fixed houses, the 2nd, the 5th, the 8th, the 11th. We want to address any area of sexual wounding that we are just suppressing. This can be past life. This can be from earlier in this life. We don't want to suppress it anymore. Uranus is pushing it up. When I say Uranus, I mean Aquarius, okay? This transit is going to light bulb anything that we have been suppressing from a sexual perspective. We can't understand it if we avoid it or pretend it's not in our life. And distorted Jupiter again, it compromises on itself. It can't stand in its truth, so it just pushes it away and it compromises. Or it does a whole Pollyanna attitude and just pretends like something never happened. And so Jupiter in Aquarius is saying, this stuff is coming up into our consciousness for us to look at. And of course, healing sexually in the 2nd house means learning how to pleasure yourself. And this goes beyond just the self-pleasuring sexually. It's learning how to self-pleasure with what your values are around food, clothing, shelter, around flourishing, around how you want to live, around how you want to relate to others on deep merging levels, 8th house polarity. This will have an effect on how you want to sexually merge with another as well. Until we self-love, self-pleasure, until we have that self-reliance to take care of ourselves in every way, we set up the distortions of codependencies and power over, power unders with those 8th house polarities. How can we, again, honor ourselves? What are our broadest values? So how does that mean we will live our life as a human? And then how does that interact with others? There's all kinds of ideas that'll pop in here on how to evolve self-reliance and how to love ourselves and how to, take care of ourselves in every way, and then how to emerge with another. So we especially want to be able to adapt and change in any area of our life as it is presenting itself to be necessary, versus fixed modality again with Aquarius as a sign and the 2nd house versus sitting on the ideas and having the pressure build up until there's a 8th house polarity confrontation, or life sends us, I like to say, the physical 2x4 or the psychic 2x4. And I like to say, sometimes it's better to get that psychic 2x4 mentally, Aquarius, and go, oh, okay, I better address this and make the change before the physical 2x4 comes along and totally creates an uproar with our world. And we also want to be able to really initiate, follow through on any of the future orientated messages with regard to learning new talents. Talent is a Taurus 2nd house word, because how do we survive and put food on the table? Are we a nurse? Are we an artist? Are we a healer? Are we a truck driver? When longer the outer planets, okay, and keep in mind that we're going to have Saturn with these transits here in Aquarius for 2 years. So, you can bring Saturn into this picture however you want to. And I did go into more detail of Saturn's in Aquarius transits through the houses in that. I think I can't remember how many part series I did on Saturn in Aquarius, but I think Leroy has it priced half price right now, so you can go review on that if you want to. Point is that as we are wanting to move from survival into flourishing, as we want to take care of ourselves better, this second house Taurian archetype is where we learn new talents. We learn new work skills to better create resources. And that's going to be part of this future orientated message of Jupiter and Aquarius transit through the second house. And I want to say, it doesn't matter what age you are. If you are in your 60s or your 70s, it doesn't stop you from learning something new and intending it to be a talent or work skill in a future life moving forward. So, as you get those future orientated messages towards new skills to create new resources, they will happen in context to your chronological age that you are on the planet Saturn. Now, here is Jupiter in the second house in general, whether we are, again, looking at it from Jupiter natally in the second house, or we are looking at the transit of Jupiter in the second house. And if you want, you can take these key phrases and blend them with the key phrases of Aquarius, past, present, and future. What are the traumas from our past that are resurfacing? What are we suppressing in the present moment? And what are the blueprints of the future coming through with those future-orientated messages? Which, by the way, clairvoyant is seeing it. Clairaudient is hearing the future-orientated message, hearing your inner voice, or even having somebody pop the words out to you. And clairsentient is feeling it instinctively in the solar plexus chakra, in the belly button, in the gut area. We can also be clairsentient with the goosebumps all over the skin as well. So the future orientated messages can come multiple ways. And just to also key reminder with those future orientated messages, once or twice they're fantasy or wishful thinking, or way down the road 10, 15 years. When they come up into consciousness of their own volition, again, it is where your own soul is intending to evolve in the near future. Jupiter and Aquarius, you better be working on it in these next 5 months as it races through that first transit of 30 degrees. And then you'll get to the end of this year when it retrogrades back to those last 8 and forward the third time, you'll get a second and third chance to really work with these archetypes some more. Not just the future orientated messages, but anything you're suppressing or whatever traumas are arising from earlier this life, past lives, relative to that Jupiter transit house. Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the third house. Here we can have mental and communication traumas resurface in various ways so that we can address things as objectively as possible. If you've got Jupiter transiting this house in Aquarius, people are going to find you and they're going to speak up personally, collectively, broadly, the stranger on the street, There can be the book that falls off the bookshelf, classically. It can be all kinds of spoken, written, mental traumas that can come up. And if we look at the left brain relationship to the third house with the transit of Aquarius, a simple trauma is getting stuck, fixed energy, fixed air, into looping the hamster on the wheel, just re-looping the same thought patterns over and over and over and over again. Jupiter comes into the picture to increase the energy to honor the right brain. Because when we're doing a mental loop with old patterns that are very triggering, we eventually just collapse inward upon ourselves mentally. Nothing makes sense. And that is the very moment when our right brain can open up and tap in to broader knowledge, Aquarius, to the Akashic records. And in that tapping in, we can get the clarity. We can get those intuitive hits that bring us the deep insights about ourselves and our world in the current moment. And it can allow us to make sense of our world in new ways that then allows that left brain to calm down and all those details to fall into place. And it can open us up to learning communication in new ways, to learn new speaking skills, to learn new listening skills. Jupiter's transit through Aquarius in the third is opening up to deeper and broader communications with everybody. Not just family, not just intimate partners, not just co-workers, not just friends, but everyone that we connect with in our life. It can allow us to not get so hung up or triggered on a specific word or a phrase. It allows us to hear what the other one is saying beyond the words, the intent that is being expressed. And it can also allow us to go to, just beautiful communications, Aquarius. Think about this just in the area of friendship when you have this kind of transit going on. Jupiter is going to open doors with communicating with friends and or releasing friendships that have run their course and or opening us up to the possibility of new friends that are more like-minded with how we are evolving in our world. Friendship will enter into all 12 house transits. And so relative to the archetypes of those houses, there may be endings and new beginnings with friends. And how well can we make the effort to understand what is going on with us in our world, in our day-to-day world, third house, but also understanding what's going on with our friends. Our friend gets a new job offer and they move 3 states away. That's going to have an effect on your once a month movies. So we'll all have ebb and flow of friendships with Jupiter and Aquarius. Now, well, one more time, can we step back, detach, and understand what is happening in the ebb and flow of our various friendships? With this third house transit, we also want to be entertaining all kinds of new possibilities in life, while third house is mutable air, Aquarius is fixed air. And so the intuition can spark, the ideas can come. Do we have the willpower to act? Or do we remain in the trauma and refuse to even look at new possibilities? And of course, if we have Aquarius on our third house cusp or in the third house, one of the lessons is with this blending is learning to live in the moment as fully as possible. Aquarius can freeze up the adaptability of the third house. And again, we get on that hamster wheel and we're just stuck doing the same thing again, again. Can we stop the wheel? Can we get off of it? Can we be fully present, learning to live and breathe in the moment? In many ways, being, a left brain archetype with this house. Can we relax and intuitively trust with Jupiter that we're okay, that our life is okay? A trauma of the third house is one moment everything's okay, and the next moment goes to hell in a handbasket. How can we breathe deep? Try to understand from a broader perspective what's going on, and then move forward however we are meant to do so. Now, here are again some key phrases of distortions with Jupiter in the third house, as well as some natural expressions of Jupiter in the third house. And Aquarius can make the distortions more traumatized. They can make the natural expressions sharper, more visionary. Aquarius being active fixed air, the active energy moving out, that air, mental energy builds up with the fixity. But the active polarity is the release valve, moving, doing, creating. And so call on that active polarity of Aquarius with the Jupiter transit, okay? Jupiter is also the active polarity. So they're sextile. Jupiter rules Sag. Sagittarius and Aquarius are sextile in the zodiac. They have a sympatical energy. And that simpatico of sextiles are related to the polarities. Active energy moving outward from the center, initiating, passive energy moving back into the center, receiving. And so Jupiter's transit through Aquarius can help move that mental stagnation forward into actions. Make the best of it. Jupiter in Aquarius, transiting through the fourth house. Here, we are going to want to allow any of our frozen emotions, frozen Aquarius emotions, fourth house. We want to allow any frozen emotions and old emotional traumas from childhood, from past lives. We want to allow these emotional traumas to resurface, and we want to process through them. We want to feel them. We want to emote them. We can ask why with Jupiter to understand. And through that process of acknowledging the emotional wounds, um, bringing them to the surface to address them, we have an opportunity to learn how to emote in healthier ways, both giving and receiving. In the fourth house, excuse me, going to take a quick drink. In the fourth house, we get that concept of emotional self reliance. I rely on myself to meet all of my own emotional needs. And when we rely on ourselves to meet our own emotional needs, we minimize the projection of dependency upon someone else. So, this is what Jupiter will search for in this house transit through Aquarius. How can I understand and take charge of my own emotional needs here? How can I understand these emotional wounds and how they trigger my actions in my family of origin or with my family that I've created? Or how I project those emotional wounds onto my partners? So we are also looking for then a deeper understanding of any childhood wounding we may have with our parents. And that's so we can learn to objectively understand our parents. Many times they were doing the best they could do with their evolutionary state of consciousness and their own environmental conditionings. Not every parent came in to be specifically mean and cruel to a child. Some of it can be unconscious. Jupiter in Aquarius through this house transit can make all of those unconscious patterns very conscious. Don't suppress them, don't avoid them, address them. And as you become an adult, as you reach the first Saturn return, as you move through the second Saturn cycle, or even your third Saturn cycle, you are giving an opportunity with this transit to learn how to be a better parent to yourself, to learn how to be a better parent to your own children, regardless of their age, to evolve your relationship with any living parents that you may still have in your world. With this transit, we also want to learn to honor those intuitive emotional hits that we get versus doing the Aquarian mental rationalizing away of our feelings as unimportant or incorrect. We can really want to suppress and push away our emotions and mentally compartmentalize them rather than just feeling and emoting. And as this transit evolves through this house, really honoring our own intuitive hits. Why do I feel this way? You can ask Jupiter. And Aquarius can spark all kinds of deeper and broader understandings. And this can then allow you to initiate that active polarity, initiate new emotional growth. You can emotionally mature. It can also allow you to initiate new emotional boundaries with people. And you're going to get future-orientated messages emotionally. This is where the clairsentient might come up. Feeling it over hearing it or seeing it. You're going to get those future-orientated messages on emotional levels. And you want to honor those senses. Override that, excuse me, let me say it differently. We want to honor those emotional intuitive hits rather than overriding them mentally. We want to use those emotions to spark our mental ahas and understandings. And as I said here, we want to be able to initiate a new maturation as we are evolving Jupiter on emotional levels here. And that allows us to make and take new actions. That 10th house polarity, taking charge of our own life, however necessary, especially as any future orientated messages are telling us to do so. And so here are your distortions and natural expressions of Jupiter natally in the 4th house or transiting through the 4th house. And again, you can add on the Aquarian words, phrases, principles, archetypes to all of this as well. And it can spark even more understandings or archetypes that you are going to be evolving through this transit. I'm going to start speeding up as we go through these second slideshows to each of these because, again, you'll have the PowerPoint PDF that you can use for however you want. Oops, what did I do? There, I did too many. Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the 5th house. This is going to be allowing any childhood traumas. If coming 5th house coming off of 4th, Leo coming off of Cancer. If we are not able to create an inner emotional self-reliance, if we don't have trust in that early environment, we don't have trust in the world. If we don't have that inner security, then that childhood wounding gets projected forward into the 5th house in Leo, and it can create what we call emotional arrests. We stop maturing. We remain childlike even as the body grows up. And so with this Jupiter Aquarius transit, we want to allow any childhood traumas to continue to arise, to surface, to be looked at. We want to know the pattern. We want to be able to objectify those patterns so we can break free and basically love ourselves on deeper levels. We will also have trauma around creativity. And, you know, we all want to be acknowledged as a creative spark in various ways. I should have put love in there. You know, trauma around love situations, okay? It's not just love affairs, but giving and receiving love with someone. And the partner ran off with our best friend. That can create a trauma. And so these types of wounds can be re-imprinted. And if they're re-imprinted, okay, that's to get our attention. to push us out of the immediacy, fifth house of the situation and go, oh, wait a minute, I better look at this again. Why am I the common denominator? And sometimes they resurface from past lives, resurface from earlier in the lifetime, the memories, Aquarius, long-term memory. And they're coming up again so that we can see the pattern. We can look at it deeply. We can look at these objectively to understand why we've behaved the way we have, why we're wounded in these areas. Now, again, as you look here, a few points down, that ability to love ourselves deeply on an inner level. It's the origin to success in all of our love issues and relationships, but it's also the origin to success in our creativity, in all kinds of ways. When we deeply love on an inner basis, then the drama queens and the drama kings, the attention getting games that we do with this house transit can fall away because we're fulfilled within rather than looking from it outside of ourselves. We have to learn to be objective with this house transit around children. This can be the house of also raising our children. It can be us as the child. Our parents couldn't see this creativity that was within us. We were supposed to go into the family trade rather than go off and do something else. Did we conform and suppress what we wanted to do? Or did we make the effort to break free and be creative as we want to as adults? You can see how these issues just kind of can weave back and forth between us as a child and us with our children around the whole issue of self-love and deeply loving another intimately and being able to create and be creative in the world. Now, what can happen here is because here we are in a fixed house again. We're in fixed fire with the Aquarian fixed air. We can remain stuck. We can avoid all of these giving and receiving love issues of the fifth house. We can want to leave our job and start our own business, but we can stay stuck for the security of the paycheck. Just look at patterns in your world with this transit in which that energy to be secure has a tendency to be stronger than the energy to change or initiate. Bless Jupiter for bringing along the intuitive hits that we must find the fifth house courage to change before it blows up. The explosions that come from the fixed modality when we have too much inertia. Many of the future orientated messages with this transit are going to revolve around creativity. And so, how are they coming through? Which areas are repeating themselves again, again, again? Can you find a way to move forward in those directions? Can you be a part of a group with creativity? If you have Aquarius on the fifth house or in the fifth house, here we have the opposite archetypes blending together. Aquarius is naturally opposite Leo, fifth. 11th house is opposite fifth. And so we're going to have to objectify where we need to intuitively do our own thing, follow through on our own creativity, and where we have to be creative with others in a group or a partnership. So there's going to be the lesson, the evolution to honor the intuitive hit, doing it ourselves and doing it with others. In some areas, it may be about the courage to do it alone, group of one. In other areas of our life, it may be learning how to move forward creatively with our partner in changing how we raise the children. Both can come through. And this is where we call on Jupiter one more time to help us understand the intuitive hits, the future-orientated messages coming through. And I also think because the fifth house is the, Sun, Leo, fifth house. It is the life force within all of us. And so this Jupiter transit through the fifth house with Aquarius, it is about moving forward with our life in general. We can get intuitive hits in all kinds of areas of our life where it requires us to exercise the will, fifth house, the courage, fifth house, to initiate, to move forward, overcoming the fixity of Aquarius and the fifth house. Now, here are some keywords and phrases for the distortions of Jupiter in the fifth house and natural expressions of Jupiter in the fifth house. And you can see what Aquarian sparks hit for you when you reflect upon these in a little more detail or over a longer period of time. So Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the sixth house, one of the things that's necessary here is to acknowledge how much we overreact to life in general. And this is especially as unconscious traumas dictate through fear and a lack of trust in life. Mercury, the inner side of Mercury, because the Virgo in the sixth is passive polarity. So this is where we get inner side of Mercury. The inner side of this is through Virgo sixth is always pondering and analyzing what needs to change, what's wrong, the cup half empty lack. And when that lack includes the lack of being able to trust Jupiter, life, creates fear. And of course, the 6th and the 12th, Virgo, Pisces, relates to the polarity of all the sadomasochistic distortions that we can have through the patriarchal conditionings, especially, via religion, but also the patriarchal social conditionings as well. So what can happen with this house transit is trauma is triggered through the smallest little things. And we overreact, the mountain out of a molehill. And then, it turns into that crisis. And here we can get stuck in fixed air Aquarius, the perpetual crises. The hamster running in the wheel again, the worry wart, the, never enough time to, you get the work projects done, or, get the house clean, or get the to-do list done, whatever it is. And what this Jupiter in Aquarius transit wants us to do is Aquarius be able to, again, step back, detach, and see what is that pattern and what are the beliefs underneath that pattern that keep us stuck in this. And how do we have to evolve those beliefs to help us then change the pattern and act differently? How can we, via that 12th house polarity, trust the ultimate source with our life to help us calm down, to help us be okay, to help us be a little more flexible? Virgo can be really good at going here and there, especially when it learns with this transit to really trust ourselves on an intuitive level and allow those sixth house details to left brain details to mentally fall into place. This is a house transit where we will want to make an effort to evolve into stronger self-worth and self-esteem. What can be underneath the sixth house crises is a deep lack of self-worth if we don't feel worthy of source. Well, one of our, basic teachings in evolutionary astrology is source itself is not perfect. The reason the unmanifest manifested was in an effort to perfect itself. Why would something perfect create this mess? So when we realize that every baby step forward we make to evolve, to perfect self source itself is evolving and perfecting. That Jupiterian understanding can really help us relax. And then the intuitive hits become stronger yet. And the Aquarian sparks come faster yet. Oh, that's why I'm always acting this way. That's why I'm always being so triggered this way. Can I take the deep breath and calm down? Can I make that effort to initiate new, healthy efforts with myself? They will be on all 4 levels here. Jupiter's going to bring in the spiritual efforts. Aquarius will bring in the mental. They both can bring in the emotional and the physical. I have always been triggered by those who go body, mind, spirit. You've seen all the new agey stuff. Body is physical, mind is mental, spirit is spiritual. It should be body, heart, mind, spirit. And Aquarius in my first house. Over the decades, I've had a tendency to kind of, most of the time I do it pretty gently. And I just go, well, where's the emotions or the heart and body, mind, spirit? You're missing a whole archetype here. Just a little side note for good detail. So, though Jupiter, evolution, Aquarius, sparking how? Our healthy efforts to progress have to happen all 4 levels here, not just the earth-orientated energy of the sixth house. Or again, spiritual Jupiter, mental Aquarius, all levels. And then as we learn to evolve our belief systems, going from left brain to right brain here with the sixth house transit, and as that allows us to relax and calm down into broader and deeper levels of trusting, that allows those future orientated messages to come in, specifically in regards to work and play. Because in the sixth house, we can't be 100% work. We've got to have the rest to balance. You can put the word rest instead of play in there if you want to. We've got to be able to have the balance here in order to keep a calmness or a relaxation equilibrium. And if we balance that work and rest, it allows the future orientated messages around work to come through stronger, stronger, stronger. How many times, let's just say you write in some area and you get writing deadlines, or you are a journalist, do you write astrology forecasting, do you do techno writing on computers and programming? How many times just in general when there is that deadline and there's so much to do, you can just go into overwhelm. And if you just get up and go outside and walk around for a few minutes, or you just get up and distract yourself in some way, that ability to separate from that work and rest or balance or play with this transit will allow the Jupiter and Aquarius sparks to go off left and right. And it can actually shorten the work effort or the necessary amount of time, because you're learning to go back and forth, left brain, right brain, naturally, and allowing both to be a part of the equation. Interesting way of looking at this transit through the sixth house, isn't it? Here's your keywords for the distortions and natural expressions that you can read and reflect on for yourself later on. Or pause if you are doing the webinar after the effect, after the live class here. So Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the seventh house. Of course, we're going to have relationship traumas resurfacing in order to understand what happened. Hopefully, in order to resolve what happened. What sparks for me is, my marriage breaking up at 26. That was the traumatic event that opened my world to astrology. I'm so very, very grateful for it. And, my ex left me. And, the emotional codependencies and pining for him to come back. Well, as I opened my world up to astrology and reincarnational astrology and started on my own healing and recognizing that, we probably weren't going to cycle back around again in this lifetime, I found myself personally making efforts to resolve it. I want to understand this. I want to know why. I want to heal it. I want to minimize karma. Well, lo and behold, what we have 5, 6 years ago, the Ho'oponopono forgiveness prayer come into popularity. The Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, Ho'oponopono. I love you or I care about you, step 1. Step 2, I am sorry for whatever the situation or issue is. Step 3, please forgive me. Step 4, I forgive you. And so what I want to point out here with this transit is that we can resolve relationship karma, whether the former partner is in our life or not, whether the former partner is alive or not. Don't get Aquarian stuck into thinking that, oh, I'm not going to be able to resolve this until a future life when we meet again. You don't have to hold yourself back. You can keep growing and evolving. And who knows? You can run into this person again, and you may or may not need to do it on an intimate level. So these relationship traumas, as they resurface, you want to detach and objectify. How am I the common dominator? What are my patterns in this? And how do I evolve it into healthier relating patterns and healthier yes and no, healthier boundaries? What we have to be careful of with Aquarius on this house or in it is unhealthy relating patterns that we remain stuck in. It's just too comfortable here, even though I'm not really fulfilled, to change. And we can make excuses. We can avoid the difficult situations in our relating pattern. You know, the classic here with Aquarius would be the abusive husband or wife, the abusive partner. And instead of leaving, we make excuses or we keep going back. And what Jupiter wants us to do here is understand our role and change. This is the outer side of Venus, the active polarity. This is relationships with others, and they're only going to be as healthy as that relationship we have with ourselves, referring back to the inner side of Venus, Taurus second. But there is, major opportunities to evolve our relationships with this transit. It will also bring up that ability to objectively listen to others as well. Objectivity is an Aquarius principle. How well can we objectively listen to what somebody is saying? That psychology of listening doesn't mean we have to agree, but can we actually listen to where they're coming from rather than projecting ourselves onto them and then being traumatized one more time when they don't like the projection and they leave or don't behave the way we want. But to the degree that we can really learn to listen to others relative to that first house polarity, it allows us to say yay or nay with what is best for ourselves, rather than being what I call the karma chameleon in relationships, adapting in order to be loved, rather than saying, this is who I am and this is who I'm not. We also want to initiate relationship depth here. We've got Jupiter. We don't want the surface seventh house stuff. We want relationship depth with direct communications, Jupiter, truth versus lies, self-honesty, honesty with others. That allows us then to have the deeper communications with someone. And the relationship can evolve. We can be friends with our partner as well as intimate lovers. Now, of course, with Jupiter going into the 7th house, any sign, there can be relationship new beginnings, there can be relationship endings. There can be the evolution of the relating patterns. And so with Aquarius, it's possible that there can be some traumatic endings. How well can you detach and ask, why did this happen? How did this happen? What is the purpose? What was my role? We can jump into a relationship here, Jupiter going overboard. We can have an intense relationship that blows hot and fast. It can be all over the place. What we want to do is really honor those intuitive hits when we get a sense of ourself manipulating, or we get a sense of ourself wanting to project, rather than first house polarity, meet the need or self. When we're looking at Jupiter through Aquarius in the 7th, there's a lot of relationship pressure and even friendship pressure. Aquarius, 7th house. There will be that necessity to be able to be ourself, the group of one, from that first house polarity. How well can we stand up and be honest with ourselves, Jupiter, to be truthful with ourselves and others through the relationships? How well can we agree to disagree? How well can we be me, regardless, even if it feels like there's a little bit of friction? What are we learning from this? Healthy boundaries in some way? Or possibility? Here's your key words for Jupiter. Distortions in the 7th house, natural expressions in the 7th house. Any of you who are listening live, if any comments or questions come up, you're always welcome to type them into the Q&A panel with Leroy. He'll answer if he knows, or open us up to interact. If you think there's an archetype that I'm skipping over or forgot, by all means, let me know. Moving on. Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the 8th house can bring up intense traumatic memories. The fixed water, the emotional intensity that has trauma to it. These memories can surface from earlier in this life, from past lives. We can re-imprint. It's quite possible that sometimes Aquarius 8th blending, there can be violence. The traumatic memories can have violence in them. There can be sexual violence. There can be resource upsets and violence. You know, a sibling taking or getting all the inheritance when the last parent leaves. You know, there can be all of the classic sexual violence, the rapes, the distortions. Again, this life, past lives. Jupiter's transit wants to bring this to broader, deeper understandings, to break free. So what we need here is deep psychological exploring It's necessary in order to understand why the soul created this traumatic experience or experiences. Of course, all of this is going to come from the thousands of years of patriarchal conditionings we've had on the planet. It's also possible that it is some type of karmic resolving, karmic retribution. But it's also possible that it may be evolutionary necessity. In general, in evolutionary astrology, we say if there is something traumatic that happens to a person, do not assume karmic retribution. It may be that there's some lesson of suppression or avoidance in some way. And there is what we call evolutionary necessity. With the patriarchal distortions, the, abused wife who allows the husband to continually physically abuse her. May not be that she abused someone in a past life. It could be that you're going to repeat this until you learn the lesson, until you stand up for yourself, until you create healthy boundaries, until you learn to love yourself and hold enough self-esteem. See these words from previous houses? That you say, you no longer can do this to me. So, and this especially becomes true for astrologers. I mean, if any of you are counseling in the field of astrology, one of the things that I always like to do is look at any traumatic event or situation from the perspective of karma, retribution, or evolutionary necessity. And I will share both sides of that picture and then give the power, eighth house here, give the power to the client and say, you are the best one to intuitively understand what's going on here, resolving karma or waking up. We will want to initiate relationship changes in this house transit as well. All of those beginnings and endings, or we can even say metamorphosing that needs to take place as the future orientated messages reveal themselves and reveal the path forward. If we go back to the classic example with the abused wife, and she keeps getting that message again, that she has to leave, or she even gets the future orientated message of seeing herself with a broken nose or a broken arm. How much more of the psychic 2x4 do you want before it gets physical? So there can be all kinds of future orientated messages, and it doesn't have to go to the degree of leaving the relationship. It can just be fixed water, eighth house, that there's an emotional stagnation in your own world or in the world of your intimate relationships, and something has to evolve emotionally. Any of the Aquarian lightning bolts can deeply trigger the emotions that we need to be aware of to then evolve, change, make the metamorphic leap. So, of course, with the second house polarity, it will relate even in the eighth to evolving our self-reliance, so that we empower ourselves and we empower others. Because the more self-reliant we are, okay, the more we can say yes and no in intimate relationships in whatever ways are healthiest for ourselves. We don't have to manipulate. We don't have to power over. We don't have to let others control us. And of course, we want to be intimate friends as well as lovers here. One of the things that I say in general to the Pluto in Libra and Pluto in Scorpio generations is in natural law, friends and lovers are opposite the wheel. Friends, Aquarius 11th, lovers, Leo 5th. Friends become lovers, and when the love relationships are done, in natural law, we go back to friendship. We don't do that in the squares with Scorpio, in the patriarchal distortions. We fall into that until death us do part of religion. I also say to these generations, and you can transpose this to 7th house, 8th house. In natural law, relationships are companionship, friendship, intimacy in that order. Companionship, the activity is more important than the person. This is where we see if we have compatibility with our beliefs and values. Then we move into friendship. In friendship, the person becomes more important than the activity. We compromise. We learn to do things that we wouldn't necessarily do. I never, ever watched football until I got married. Now I have my own games that I like to watch. You get the point. Then we move into intimacy, because when the best relationships in the world still have problems, when intimacy has its lessons, we fall back on friendship and companionship. This can be something to learn in Jupiter and Aquarius transit through the 8th house. But we be friends as well as lovers. It's not just the 5th and the 11th. And of course, there will be an evolution of our beliefs around relationships. What constitutes a healthy, intimate relationship? Am I in one? Is that how I'm participating? Or am I recognizing more natural relating beliefs and principles, but it's not the reality of my world? You want to pay attention to the future-orientated messages on what's going to change, because it can blow up in your face if your relating patterns are not congruent with your evolving beliefs around intimacy. So here are some of those key words on the distortions and natural expressions of Jupiter in the 8th. And of course, one more time, you can ponder Aquarian insight as you look at these keywords and phrases and how they could possibly be happening or working in your world. All right, 2/3 of the way. Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the 9th house is doubling up on its own archetype. Jupiter naturally rules the 9th house. Here, we're going to have a resurfacing of any traumas related to our belief systems, any traumas related to the patriarchal conditionings and cultural belonging within our soul. And hopefully these traumas resurfacing trigger awareness of broadening into universal beliefs and social patterns. And so the resurfacing of traumas can be from earlier in this life. You know, I had an intimate partner of a different race who broke up with me because 3 older sisters said, "Don't you dare marry a white girl." I had a boyfriend in high school who broke up with me because I was a Protestant and his parents told him he could only date Catholics. Yeah, it was a little traumatic at the time for my natal 8th house Pluto, but I evolved. The point is, you're going to have the resurfacing of traumas related to belief systems, and that includes religions and all the standards of conduct, right, wrong, that we're pressured to conform to, or we're, triggered if we violate. We have the patriarchal conditions of natural law in general. And when we're dealing with Jupiter, Sag in the 9th house, we're dealing with cultural belonging as well, our social groups. And the traumas coming up are so that we can, again, detach from the situation, event, memory, understand it from a broader perspective, and evolve, expand our beliefs. You know, in natural law, all cultures, all races want to love and protect their children. It's not relative to a specific color of your skin. We might develop into different cultural patterns of how we do that, but we all naturally want to protect our young ones. And so this is where we really can spark and intuit truth versus lies. And we can do this around any area of our life, not just our beliefs. You know, Jupiter transiting its own house wants to know. Its distortion is thinking that what it knows is the be all and end all. My God is better than your God. But anytime we have an Aquarian trigger or upset, it is actually opening the door to a deeper, broader understanding. And so that allows us to become more and more objective about ourselves and our lifestyle. And are we in alignment with a more natural lifestyle as we are evolving our beliefs, as we are evolving from a personal truth to a universal truth? You know, this transit could bring the Aquarian shock that I just can't live this way anymore. I can't live the rat life, 9 to 5 lifestyle. I gotta get off that hamster wheel. I have to have a lifestyle that allows me to be more congruent with who I really am. And it can manifest in all kinds of ways. It just doesn't mean that you have to go off and live in nature. You know, it can be as simple as it's not congruent for you to live in a cement skyscraper. You are someone who maybe needs to be in a duplex or in your own house or in an area that just allows you to feel more in tune with a group of people or a community. Now, with this transit, there can be a lot of future-orientated messages. We've got the Aquarian energy from that, and we've got the visions of Jupiter in its own 9th house. And so the potential is there to really initiate actions versus being stuck. What we will have to kind of discern or intuit are those future-orientated messages for ourselves personally, or are they of a more collective level? If they are personal to us, obviously then it is showing us directions in which we are needing to move forward. If they are of a more collective level, it may or may not be for us to get involved. Aquarius, social action, social justice. That archetype can take place in any of the 12 houses. Social justice in the 5th house may be, creating universal health care in the United States. It can be, again, relevant to each archetype around the 12 houses. So it's honoring that intuition that's telling us how active to be or to not be with social causes, social justice activities. I have natal Jupiter in the 9th house, and I called my environmental politic years my Peace Corps years. I put my belongings in storage and I lived out of a suitcase doing the initiative and referendum process in my state of South Dakota, which, by the way, South Dakota initiated the initiative and referendum process. We were the first state to say that citizens can bring a initiative to the ballot and directly initiate their own laws, and they can refer laws and turn them down directly. I was very proud of that little fact. But the point is, now I'm not single and in my 20s anymore. Now I speak to the energy of those, but I recognize it's not my work to be directly involved in things that I'm passionate about. So one more time, it becomes important here that you get intuit what's yours to act upon and what's not yours to act upon. What you can perhaps just be supportive in a collective way. And we also can find this transit with Aquarius opening us up to natural healing and speaking abilities. Every time Jupiter transits its own 9th house, this is going to happen. Aquarius is going to give us the sparks of ideas. And then, of course, taking action to develop these new ways of learning to speak and communicate and initiate. I'm actually looking back on previous cycles to see if Jupiter was in my 9th when I was in environmental politics. Yeah, we'll move on. It wasn't that I can tell at a quick glance, but other things were going on as well. Here are the distortions and natural expressions of Jupiter in the 9th house, natally, by transit, as it goes through here. And so, to move us along, Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the 10th house. Here we have to watch for the tendency to suppress or avoid anything in our life that we do not want to look at, that we do not want to address or process through. The 10th house is that Saturn archetype, and it's going to want to take that individuated unconsciousness suppression and add on and intensify it. And Jupiter is about opening up and looking at trauma through Aquarius, not suppressing or avoiding it. So we want to open up and observe traumas around this archetype. This life, past lives, earlier, any traumas around career. 4th, 10th, any traumas with family and familial patterns. Any traumas with just our position in society and how we mature and participate in society. And we want these traumas to come back so we can step and objectively look at how our prior actions have created this current moment or situation in life. Any student of astrology, and especially those who study EA, we all know things just do not randomly happen. We all know in the big, broad picture, it's A, B, C, D, E, F. One thing leads to the next, leads to the next. And so to detach and objectify prior actions then gives us a choice to act differently into the future. So this really is about initiating self-responsibility to change ourself, to change our self-discipline, to change our career, to change how we want to participate in the world, especially as those Aquarian future-orientated messages come through. Maybe telling us to change careers. Maybe telling us to add something on. Maybe telling us to go back to school. Who knows? What we have to do here is find that courage again to step up to whatever our responsibility is as life presents itself to us. So again, no avoidance, no ignoring, no blaming, no victimization from emotional immaturity. It's like, okay, this is me. This is my life. If I don't like it at this point, what am I going to change? And then moving forward in those directions, however necessary. This is the intuitive courage to grow up, to be an adult in society. Here are the Jupiter in the 10th house words and phrases for the distortions and the natural expressions when Jupiter is here. One of the things that you can do is, if you know where Jupiter is natally by house, you can look at whichever one of these 12 houses is your natal Jupiter and just ponder on that for yourself as how you are here to evolve and grow, especially with your beliefs. If you know what sign your Jupiter is in, then you relate that sign to its natural house and you go and read that archetype out of these 12. And you can go to those two archetypes of Jupiter in its natal house and how Jupiter would relate by archetype to the natal sign. And you can ponder just those two PowerPoint slides for a while. Then go add on Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through one or more of your houses. But have these two slides of keywords and phrases there for you to reflect back and see how natal Jupiter is evolving and sparking through this annual Aquarian transit. So Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the 11th house is doubling up on the Aquarius archetype. And so, of course, here we are going to have traumas resurfacing. Perhaps there might be an emphasis on mental traumas or how trauma affects us mentally, and those patterns surfacing so that we can understand why these things have happened and work to heal however it is necessary. We can still find some avoidance and suppression with this transit in the 11th house, because as we learned in part 1, the individuated unconsciousness contains the past in all its detail, this in every life. It contains what we suppress via the present, the Saturn connection, and it contains the future orientated messages. So even though we don't have Saturn, 10th house or Capricorn in the picture here, it is still part of the whole archetype of the individuated unconsciousness with Uranus, Aquarius, and 11th house. And so if we have Jupiter in Aquarius and the 11th, we've got to watch suppressing trauma. And when that's the case, it has a tendency to really create nervous system issues, nervous system tics, skin eruptions. As you'll see in the next slide, it can create the extremes of mental diseases because we can't understand Jupiter, what happened, because we can't process Jupiter, what happened in a broader context, and work to heal it so that we are not just the hamster in the wheel circling around and round again, mentally, physically, or however. So we want to call on Jupiter to open us up intuitively so that we can evolve the fixed mental patterns, that circular thinking, and again and again and over and over and over. We want to break free. 11th house, Aquarius. We want to think in new ways. We want to process in new ways. So with this transit, if you have, shock and awe come into your world, if you have a trauma that comes through, you want to, really make an effort to use the energy of the upset to detach, objectify, understand, move forward. Because there can be a strong tendency here to understand and know what to do, to get those future orientated messages, but we don't act on them. We just live in the imagination. We live in the Pollyanna world or the la world of Jupiter, and oh, that's a nice idea, and Oh my gosh, that would be a wonderful way to set up a healing center or start my, new yoga studio, but we don't do it. Fixed air. So one more time, we've got to find that courage to be the group of one, however necessary. We've got to find that courage and that will to break free, from the old patterns, to break free from old lifestyles, to break free from friends and groups that no longer serve us, to be on our own, to be me. And that means, as we're evolving our beliefs continually with Jupiter, learning to trust in the process of life through the ups and downs, through the good and the bad. None of us are going to live in a state of ecstasy 100% of the time. And none of us really need to live in a state of misery 100% of the time. But life evolves, it ebbs and flows. We all have upsets, we all have miracles. And it's learning to do that Jupiterian evolving through up and down. It allows for a relaxation. It allows us to mentally relax. It allows those nervous system issues that can come from the fixed air of Aquarius to calm down and trust. Leroy has a phrase, and I guess this is something I can ponder because it triggers me. It doesn't trigger me quite so much anymore, but it used to trigger me when we first got together, and he would say, life is never as good as it seems, nor is it ever as bad as it seems. Just take it with the flow. That can really be a message for this house transit with Jupiter and double Aquarius. Ebb and flow, okay? Here's distortions that can come with this Jupiter house. Distortions, natural expressions. Again, you will be able to refer to these in a more intuitive, slower way on your own. Finally, Jupiter in Aquarius transiting through the 12th house is recognizing the resurfacing of any and all traumas, including spiritual trauma, in order to break free and heal versus remaining stuck and lost in the trauma. We can, get quite confused and, even disassociate out of the body, escapism, when we look at Aquarius on or in the 12th house. And Jupiter wants to open that up to understand it, to be more objective around any trauma, to understand the lifetime we, got burned at the stake, or the lifetime we went into the convent and they still, destroyed it. We want to, understand things from broader and broader and broader principles when it comes to the 12th house. Sometimes that's asking a lot. especially in consensus consciousness. We just get lost. We escape. We go for the addiction of substances or TV or fictional books. When the opportunity with Jupiter is to open up to the Aquarian objectivity, to open up to brutal honesty with oneself. One of my phrases for Neptune, Pisces, and the 12th is absolute self-responsibility creates absolute freedom. Jeffrey Green would say, on the broadest level, there is no victimization. Well, that also, both of those statements, they require us to have the broadest understanding of natural spiritual laws and principles that we can intuit and accept and make sense of, versus perhaps some religious dogmas. The more we can open up and understand that there is no perfect God, there is no old man with a white beard sitting on a cloud judging. The more we can understand that, the more we can do everything we were looking at with the sixth house polarity transit of, baby steps forward. We're all here in the process to perfect on planet Earth. And because this archetype contains all 11 that came before it, we have to learn how to honor those intuitive hits for healthier boundaries with each other. Pisces, is this my emotions or yours? 12th house, am I tapping into one of your traumas or one of mine? And we can be supportive of and facilitate helping someone heal their trauma, but we can't heal their trauma for them. They have to heal their trauma themselves. We have to heal our own trauma. So how do we have those healthy boundaries of what we're responsible for and what we're not responsible for? What's our trauma to heal and what's not? And so, of course, as we are working to heal trauma in general and spiritual trauma specifically, that's going to allow us to expand our ability to intuit ultimate universal truths on broad, timeless levels. And then that's going to lead us to future-orientated messaging to initiate new spiritual directions. No matter where you are, there's always another step on the ladder. There's always another ripple in the pond. So what are the future-orientated messages with this transit in regards to your own beliefs, in regards to your own spiritual understandings, and then how that needs to be turned into action in order to evolve? And of course, how do we make peace with the imperfectness? Did I have that word right? Imperfectedness? Imperfectness. Yeah, I was just typing away. However you need to say that word. Making peace with the imperfection of the world. That's it. I'm going to make a note here. My Virgo notes. It is not perfect here on planet Earth. Again, this is the process where we are on the path to perfect. And so being able to make peace with that and co-create with Source, however our intuition guides us, it allows us to be a part of minimizing trauma from patriarchal distortions on the planet versus being a co-creator of trauma. And that's what this transit is really all about, personally and collectively, however it is healthy to do so. This transit is understanding trauma to heal it, release it, let it go, to create a more natural rule and law of life. So here are the distortions and natural expressions of Jupiter in the 12th house. Hey, I did it in 2 hours. Any questions or comments? I have just a couple more slides. I'm just leaving this up for a few seconds so those on video can pause if they want. What I want to end with is the reflection that we have been working with Jupiter's 3 conjunctions to Pluto in deep evolution of our own souls throughout 2020. We are just coming off of the winter solstice 20 conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, now moving into air element conjunctions, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius for the next 200 years. And of course, initiating an early Aquarius right now and all the traumas that we've experienced this year, some of the future orientated messages we've all had to go through. What I want to point out to you is that Jupiter conjuncts Neptune in 22, Chiron in 23, and Uranus in 24. In 5 years, Jupiter conjuncts all of the outer planets. I haven't started incorporating Eris yet, but I do Chiron. And so, boy, talk about releasing old beliefs and evolving into new ones. Talk about evolution taking place in the first half of this decade. Listen to those intuitive hits about the future that Jupiter and Aquarius are bringing for each of us individually and for all of us collectively. And find that courage to take action, however you are led to believe you need to do so. Here is my 2021 forecast that'll take place January 4th of 21. Leroy kindly reminded me that this link will be good after the fact, but it is not the link for enrolling in the forecast ahead of time. That you want to do off of our email newsletter
event newsletters, yes.
Yeah,
and there'll be one more coming out January 3rd, I think, the day before.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Leroy. I forgot. I just remembered.
Yeah, but that's really kind of neat. We try to make sure that everybody, it's a year-long thing, and there'll be a lot of data in there and a lot of research that has gone into it. So if you need to buy it after the live event, feel free to go to that link, and it'll be posted there. Again, that PDF is a download that you get right on your account page. It's archived under downloads forever, and open it up, and all the audio and video links are on the first page.
And then, of course, can you believe we got a Mercury retrograde coming up? Mercury retrograde entirely in Aquarius. The Mercury retrogrades are in air signs throughout 2021. Our free pay it forward Mercury retrograde webinar is January 25th. And you can look for the link to register for that with the event newsletters, right?
Well, that's a freebie, so we'll put that link in a lot of different places.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Any comments or questions from anybody before we close out?
Thanks for the research. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you, everyone. Wishing you all the best through the remainder of the holidays, and look for the links to this in the next day or so. Thank you, everyone.